Hello everybody, this is Joe Leeds reporting for the Thailand Law Forum. Today the subject is drones, unmanned aerial vehicles. Recently the Department of Defense has authorized 110 bases for drones within the domestic USA. This is in the same environment that currently is already using unmanned drones in local law enforcement, and an Obama administration that is increasingly receptive, even supportive, to the use of domestic drones for domestic law enforcement capabilities. Now, what's the problem with this? The problem with this is a pesky little document called the Constitution. The particular provision of the Constitution is the Fourth Amendment, which protects American citizens' rights to unreasonable searches and seizures. Now, what this normally means is that if a police officer or other law enforcement official wants to search you or your premises, he has to go to the court and apply to the judge for a warrant, and the judge has to duly sign and authorize the warrant before he can invade your privacy. Now, normally the warrant requirement is primary, but there are a few exceptions. One is if a crime is being committed in plain view of the law enforcement officer. For instance, let's say you have a bag of marijuana in your parked vehicle, and a police officer meanders by, looks into your vehicle, and sees the marijuana. In that instance, he has probable cause and reasonable suspicion to conclude that a crime is being committed. He doesn't have to apply for a warrant. Now, with regard to technology, things have changed with regard to plain view, and a similar concept called reasonable expectation of privacy has been used by the courts to determine whether a warrant is required. Now, keep in mind, a warrant is there for our protection, to protect us against abusive or excessive law enforcement or government intrusion into our personal lives. This is a very important and central concept of the U.S. Constitution. So again, with regard to technology, things are a little bit different. And what the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled is that if you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, then the law enforcement officer, the police officer, has to apply to the court for a warrant. If you don't, no warrant is required. So in order to see a grow operation for marijuana in somebody's home, the use of infrared cameras may require a warrant. However, the Supreme Court has ruled with regard to surveillance from above in public airspace, you do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So for the time being, drones are legal to surveil our gardens, our patios of our homes without requiring that law enforcement needs a warrant. Now, I think this is wrong. The reason why this is wrong is because when the court is making this decision that you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy because technology has developed, well, technology is going to continue to develop over time, and our expectation of privacy is going to be whittled away down to nothing as technology expands. At a certain point in time, the drones will be able to have X-ray vision or other types of capabilities that they don't have now. And according to the court's rationale, because this is in the public sphere and people are aware of it, they should reasonably expect this type of intrusion. Now, I think that when people are normally thinking about what they should have a reasonable expectation of privacy with regard to, they're looking at their own internal moral compass as to what's right, what the government should be allowed to pry into, and when the government should stay out of your personal affairs. I don't think having a sliding scale that as technology develops and increases, that our right to privacy slowly shrinks is acceptable at all. On another topic, related topic, is the drone industry is big money. And it's in a class of industries such as the Department of Homeland Security, the TSA. The TSA implemented their, what is it called, scatter X-ray technology. Now, the private contractors that developed this, they made a boom. They made a lot of money, and this is with government contracts. Now, this business model that military contractors, the military industrial complex, uses when they're manufacturing these type of surveillance, quasi-military technology is that they develop the technology first, then the need is imposed upon the public. Now, I've always learned that in private business, a businessman observes the public, sees where the need is, and then develops the technology. So I think with regard to drones and X-ray machines and these increasingly intrusive invasions of our privacy, the government, in collusion with the military-industrial complex, is basically imposing their will on us. They're not looking at true market demand. They create a technology. Unfortunately, the technology usually involves weapons or some type of advanced type of surveillance that are not particularly palatable to most Americans. Going further on this issue, I'd like to introduce a clip from one of my favorite YouTube channels, the Young Turks, Mr. Cenk Uygur, who recently did a piece on the use of drones and the public reaction to that. So let's take a look.
Hell no. Why? Here's the critical difference. Because that might apply to them. They're like, look, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not an escaped criminal. I'm not crossing the border illegally. You want to use it against those folks? Have at it, folks. Go for it, right? You want to use it against me? No. Drones are for other people. They're not for me. And a funny little stat about that is, are you concerned about privacy issues? Well, they broke it down by race. Look at the numbers. 50% of blacks are concerned. 54% of Hispanics are concerned. Only 39% of whites and 38% of Asians are concerned. Now, why the differences in those numbers? Because blacks and Hispanics think, yeah, they might use it on us. Whereas whites and Asians think, they won't use it on us. No, they'll only spy on the people breaking the law and the other.
Okay, so that's all there is to it, eh, Cenk? If a person feels personally affected by it, then they'll be against it. But if they don't feel personally affected by it, then they won't be against the use of drones invading their privacy. Well, I think the issue is a little bit more complicated than that, and I think you've underestimated your audience. I think that there's a certain amount of people in your audience, including myself, that are not looking at this issue as whether it personally affects our lives, but we're looking at it on the basis of principle. And again, going back to that pesky little document called the U.S. Constitution, this type of technology is eroding away at our basic civil liberties, particularly our Fourth Amendment rights in this case. And I think that a fair amount of the public understands this issue as a deprivation of their civil liberties, and to minimize the issue as saying, oh, people who are against it because it personally affects them, but people who are for it because it doesn't personally against it, minimizes your audience, and it minimizes the constitutional argument. Another thing, Mr. Cenk, I love your show, but why was it necessary to have this type of poll, including a section regarding to the racial divisions with regard to this issue? This issue has nothing to do with race. This is an issue of rights to privacy for all Americans, black, white, Mexican, and Asian, and other groups. I, for one, am sick and tired of the media cramming racial issues into news stories where they do not otherwise belong. We have enough issues with race in this country without popular media channels, people that should be acting as leaders and with responsibility, constantly rubbing racial divisions in our face. Other than that, I loved your show. This is Thai Law Forum signing off. Let's protect the Constitution, and I hope you have a great day.